Welcome to Le Corner, La Source's digital show dedicated to the sport and entertainment industry. Every 2 weeks, we invite a professional to share their experience, background, and challenges. The sport industry moves fast, and having their insights is the best way to keep up to speed. Welcome to Le Corner.
The world of football is constantly evolving. New stakeholders seize opportunities, and industry leaders shift their focus towards innovating their business model to keep up with current trends. In our latest Le Corner episode, we had the pleasure of welcoming the director of World Football Summit, Jan Alessie. He shared his experiences with the sports events industry. From the inception of this dynamic venture to its international growth, Jan spills the bean on the challenges faced, but also the groundbreaking strategies that propelled them to the forefront of the football world. We hope you will enjoy. Here is my privilege to have a long-time friend in the industry, Jan Alessie. Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, Jean-Baptiste. Very well. The privilege is mine, believe me.
So Jan, for those of you who don't know, he's the big guy behind the World Football Summit. You don't know much about him. He's not really into the newspapers or talking. Usually, he's always like in the back of every event and of the industry. But he's a person that I wanted to invite on the podcast because I think his vision and what he's put together is something to be shared with the industry. So thank you, Jan, for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. And well, I'm one of the big guys, and we're two partners, and yeah, Mariano Tamendi and myself, and who set up this project now over 7 years ago, and we're very proud of the work done so far.
And actually, and what we like to start with is giving a brief background on who you are, the journey in the professional world, and in sports maybe afterwards, and after we can deep dive in on World Football Summit.
Yeah. Well, I have a bit of a strange background, or very, very international, which works well for World Football Summit. I have an Italian mother, Dutch father. I was born in Rome, but have lived most of my life in Madrid, in Spain. I have a very Dutch name. I have a Dutch passport, but don't speak a word of Dutch. So I'm a bit of a shame to the Dutch, to my Dutch nationality. I consider myself Italian because I was born there, and I lived in Rome my first 7 years. So my national team is Italy, but I'm also a Madrileño. I've lived.
And this is where come the passions from sports?
Well, yeah. Obviously, living in Italy, then in Spain. Football has always been a big passion. I arrived in Spain when I was 7, so I immediately became a Real Madrid fan. So I've always had a big passion for football, but as a fan, no. I'll let you know a little bit later, but no, the plan was never to really work in the sports or football industry, but I've always enjoyed it a lot, no. And obviously it does help a little bit when working at World Football Summit, no. And I did my university in London. So, and after that, I started working in a company actually based in Spain, but traveling the world. So I worked it's a small company called NOAA, what we did, this company, they published special advertising sections that were published in magazines or newspapers all over the world, like the New York Times, Paris Match, Le Monde, Daily Telegraph, etc. No? So I worked in that company for 3 years, traveling the world. I went to like 16 countries in three years. A lot in Africa. I was in Angola, in Algeria, Côte d'Ivoire. In Côte d'Ivoire, actually, is where I met my partner Mariano Tamendi, That was back in the year 2000. So yeah, we're very.
And you were speaking French as well.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you were
yeah.
speaking all the.
Oh, yeah. Because actually, my parents, when they met, they spoke in French amongst each other. My mother was a translator from French to Italian. She lived in Senegal, in Canada and Quebec. And my father, well, he's Dutch, but he left Amsterdam when he was 18, 17. And he worked also in many French-speaking countries. So both of them are fluent in French. I learned French at school. Then at university, I did management with French, but my French is not too good. My sister actually, she lived in Geneva, or she's now in the States, but she's going back to Geneva. So she's lived in Geneva most of her life. So actually in the family, the one who speaks the worst French is me, is myself. No, but yeah, I do speak it sometimes now, and yeah, I go often to France and obviously a lot to Switzerland. Also because of the work, every year I go to Switzerland for some time and go to Zurich, to Nyon, and do the tour of all the football organizations that are there.
Yeah. I remember from time to time at Lake Léman and stuff like that. And so you started the business, but I know as well different discussion that you've built your own business. I mean, you've been an entrepreneur yourself. So can you tell us that?
Yeah, exactly. So, well, after working in that company, traveling the world, it was a company that mainly what we did was sell these special advertising sections that promoted business relationships and commercial deals between different countries. No, only that the product wasn't too good. It was a great experience because it allowed us to travel the world, to meet very, very interesting people, and to sell these advertisements with which these reports were then financed. So then back in 2006, I set up what is still called Nexus Fostering Partnership, which is actually the company that owns World Football Summit. World Football Summit is not a company, it's a brand that is owned by Nexus Fostering Partnership. So everybody that works at World Football Summit has a contract with Nexus. What I started to do with Nexus was, it's a company that is based in Madrid, in Spain, and it was do the same, promote these commercial relations between Spain and different countries. But what we added from the special advertising section was the events side. So instead of just publishing a report in a newspaper or a magazine, what we did was we brought normally a government organization together with companies that wanted to attract investment.
Connect
yeah. So we organized these events in Spain. We organized the program of the events, and we ensured that that Spanish companies who were interested in strengthening ties with those countries came to the event, and we organized all of the B2B meetings.
It's kind of an attractive, I don't know how to say that, but kind of a public institution, kind of a business France, meaning like you're in charge of the attractivity of.
Yeah, well, in fact, we organized many of those events with what an organization here in Spain called the COE, which is like the Confederation of Spanish Businessmen. So all the big, or all the companies in Spain belong to the COE. It's like in the UK, it's, I think, the Confederation of Business Federation or something like that.
Yeah.
There is every single. And
how come football? Like, I mean, because you have all the sectors, I guess. I mean, sports is clearly one of a kind because everybody's talking about it. Eyeball is amazing and everything, but if you look at it from a pure business perspective, it's not the biggest. I mean, if you look at the health sector, or I don't know, automotive or whatever, it's 10, 20, 30 times bigger. Why?
The problem that we had with Nexus is that we worked with many countries. We did projects with Mexico, with Colombia, with Indonesia, but they weren't I mean, it was difficult for them to be a repeat business with each country. So actually in 2012, together with some partners, I set up what is now called South Summit, which is an event very similar to, basically it was a copy of Web Summit, which at the time took place in Dublin. And it was an opportunity to bring together the key stakeholder, well, the main startups in Spain in order to attract investors, both national and international. So I actually participated in the first edition of that event. At the time, it was called Spain Startup and Investor Summit. And now it's, well, for example, a month ago, they did their 11th or 12th edition. And it's a huge event, very successful. And that was a little bit the seed. I only participated in the first edition of that event, but that was the seed of World Football Summit. We started to look in the Nexus team for other industries that didn't have that annual meeting point. And with Nexus, we organized an event with Indonesia. And surprisingly, one of our sponsors was La Liga. And La Liga sponsored this event on Indonesia, and it was La Liga Football Challenge. It was a program of La Liga.
Yeah. Indonesia is one of the key market territories that you want to address when you are like a rights holder on your international strategy. I mean, the numbers there are just crazy.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's 300 million population. And it's the biggest Muslim country in the world. So this program of La Liga, what they tried to do was to encourage or to ensure that Spanish clubs during the preseason, they would go and play preseason matches in countries where they wanted to promote La Liga.
Wow.
So there, actually, it was a person who was working in our team, Marcos Pellegrin, who's now the director of La Liga in South Africa. He came up with the idea of World Football Summit, and he said, "Hey, listen, La Liga has these strong objectives, and they want to internationalize themselves." Tebas at the time was really started to talk about football not as a sports but as an industry. So we put two and two together and said, "Hey, there might be a space there." So we started talking to different people. It was very tough because we didn't have a single contact in the football industry, and obviously, well,
yeah, I have to admit, Jan, for the audience, that rings a bell for me with the Football Innovation Forum. I mean, from the story you are describing, it's a bit the same. Is you see a need or you hear a need from a right holder or from a person working directly inside that business, but maybe missing some kind of operational skills or capacity to deliver or to put that together, willing to promote it, to invest in it, but cannot deliver it. And then you are kind of the right arm managing to say, okay, we can pull this out together based on your needs to best serve your objectives. So it's
now it's
smart.
a little bit easier because now we have a name, no? But you can imagine when we came up with the idea in 2000.
How was it like in 2006? The first one, like the first event was like when you compare 23 to 2016. I mean, 2023, 2016, it's like nothing comparable.
Not comparable. No, not at all. I mean, it was an entrepreneurial project, no? So actually, we had a great idea, but ideas are worthless, no? And financing an event is very, very tough. And we had never done. We were experts organizing events, but had never organized such a big event. So we were actually trying to get budgets from different communications company, and it was impossible to organize it with those budgets. At the end, we had someone in-house who managed to do the event for very little money, so actually the budget of the first edition of World Football Summit has nothing to do with the budget that we have today, which is a lot larger. But we had to take a bet, and 2 months before that first edition, we weren't sure we would make it or not. No, and at the end we actually managed to break even in that first edition. But like 90% of the attendees were Spanish, were local. Now it's 60% or close to 60% are international. We have many more attendees than before. So yeah, it was a big challenge. But we knew that if we did a first edition and that it looked successful and that the people that participated, then we could build on that success. And each edition would become bigger and bigger, which is what happened, and which is what normally happens with any sorts of event. No, so
But you need to start small. I mean, for any kind of project, you cannot go like, except if you have a big investment or a big financial tech where you can think big to a certain extent. Otherwise, you always start, even for a project, you need to start to small. You test it, whether it's a crash test, and there whether it works or not, and then you build on it, and then you expand. And if there is some kind of satisfaction or first ROI, then it goes. Just sidetracking a little bit, because on the business side of things, and I know the event industry is quite tough, and you mentioned as well the PR or the publishing one, which has been also having quite a hard time. What's your view on, not necessarily like giving the numbers on World Football Summit, but the idea of being profitable or break even? It's like it feels like going also to these events. It's always harder. I mean, it's hard also to get the ROI for everybody involved, because you have people paying for it, for their brand exposure. You have potentially, I know, startups coming in that wants to leverage it, or other kind of agencies or sponsors. But what's the evolution you've seen a bit in the event industry, and how can you really make it profitable? Because one of your points I'm I'm alluding to is the one where you said it's tough to be break even. And I know the event industry is a very tough game. So I would like to hear it from you, because that's actually the core of your business.
Yeah, I mean, it's there are many challenges, no, when setting up an event, and obviously making it commercially viable is probably the biggest of challenge. No, it costs a lot to organize such an event, no, and securing enough revenue, no, to be able to celebrate it. Obviously, now we have a very strong and long track record. So many of our partners, they partner with us not only for the event, but throughout the year. No, through all of the events that we've celebrated, we've managed to build a platform where we try and service the industry 365 days a year. No, and we've done events in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, hopefully soon in America. So many of our, and football and sports is a very global industry. So the fact that we have such an international database allows us to offer services, and to generate revenue throughout the year, and not only just for the event.
It's not just a one-off.
No.
It's a 360. I mean, it's a 365 days connection, networking possibility, and getting to know the key people.
Yeah, I mean, we have a weekly newsletter, which before we only promoted our event, and what we were doing. And now instead, we have interviews. Now we've recently set up also a podcast. We share news about what is happening within the industry. We offer B2B services at the end, for any company that wants to enter the football industry. We have a very strong network. And normally when we write to that network, these people respond. And how difficult it is for many companies, to enter this industry. So we can be that bridge for them as well. And then obviously it's true, the events are the highlight of everything that we do, and where we receive most coverage. We finance our events, and it's no secret, through sponsorships, through companies that want to give visibility to their brand and to what they are working on as an industry player, whether it is to participate in the program of the event or have a stand in the expo area. And then obviously we have our ticketing. A lot of the ticketing, however, is a part of the ticketing we give for free for, the clubs, the leagues, the federations, the big brands, or the investors, which are the people that everybody else wants to meet, and we try and provide those people, who we try and take care as much as possible, as strong and as good a product as possible. And then actually recently, and especially internationally, what we've seen is that we also are an event which is very attractive for a city or for a country. So we have institutional partners, for example, Sevilla. The city of Sevilla now is our strongest partner, and they convinced us to take our European edition from Madrid to Sevilla. When we did our event in Africa, in Durban, it was a similar deal. In Saudi as well. At the end, we're an event that for a city brings a lot of companies and very high profile people, which help build a reputation to that city itself. And because of football and the media impact that all of our events has, to celebrate an event in a country or city is also very interesting for any country or city. So now obviously that has allowed us to have a much stronger financial stability, which at the beginning was impossible. But well, at the beginning, our event was just an idea. It was very ambitious.
You need to build. You need to build. You need to have the track record, and then that works. On the last part you mentioned, have you seen from the public authorities, is it something new that you've seen in sports? Was it first mainly the sponsors, the people from the industry, and then potentially the local people like in Durban or Saudi Arabia is a bit different given their overall strategy, but Sevilla or...
Maybe in sports it's newer because I think, we all know it, no? The sports and the football industry as an industry is rather new. Before, and that's why, for example, an event like ours maybe didn't make sense 10, 12 years ago, because nobody in Spain or in Europe, nobody was really making money out of a football club. Or a football club for other reasons, no? Now instead, if you manage it properly, you can generate revenue, and you see, the valuation of football clubs, how they've grown over the years, no? But that was maybe impossible to see 10, 12 years ago. But I think what cities and countries are doing with us, they've done it all of the time. I mean, every big city in the world has a convention and an events bureau, and they try and attract big events, to their cities or to their countries, at one scale or the other. And football sports is certainly now a very attractive industry. Maybe before it wasn't, because as an industry it didn't exist, and there was no real ecosystem around it, and instead now there are thousands of companies that are working in the sector.
True. Like, I think recently we've seen the professionalization and so the consolidation as an industry by itself, and the sports tech as well, and these kind of things. And we've seen as well there are many other events like popping up and everything like that. So you've a bit alluded to it, but beyond, I mean, for you, what does it bring? I mean, thinking of the World Football Summit and the other ones that can exist in London or in other territories, what does it really bring, or why is it important for the industry to have those kind of events? Why it matters?
Well, I think in that, obviously, we have competitors and many times companies and people who work within the industry, they have to decide between going to one event or the next. But that's no different to any other industry. In fact, in other industries, there are probably many, many more events than in sports. So there, I think we're no different to any other B2B event. no, in any other industry. And we bring people together. And each person who comes to World Football Summit comes with a different objective. No, some of them are coming to promote their brand. Other ones to learn, from speakers, and most of them, they want to network, to find new business opportunities, whether it is with new potential clients or actually strengthening existing relationships. No, I think World Football Summit has created, or has consolidated a very strong brand around football. Obviously, we actually actively invite other sports and other sectors to participate, but it's true that football is the main actor of World Football Summit. And then the fact that our event is also very global. I mean, what we've achieved here in Spain, we hope to achieve in other regions, in Asia, in Africa, and hopefully in the future also in North America or South America, to build that annual meeting point for the region, because these events, they don't step on each other. At the end, 80% of the attendees who come to Spain are European. In Asia, they'll be Asian. In Africa, they're African. If we do it in the US, they'll be from there. That's why also we named we were kind of obliged to name the events with each continent. No, so the edition here in Spain is WFS Europe, because I remember sometimes when we were negotiating with an Asian country, they were saying, no, but we don't want an Asian edition. We want your event, World Football Summit, to take place in there. And then we were saying,
in Asia,
it's never going to happen, because not by putting it there, everybody who comes to Spain is suddenly going to come to Malaysia or to China or to Indonesia or wherever we do it. No,
or South Africa for the Africa one.
So that's when we actually rebranded what was our World
with
Football
the continent
to our European edition. No, and that allows us, to reach new audiences, new speakers, new partners, because in each event, we have a different profile, of speakers, and also, the program, we have 11 tracks which try and cover everything, but obviously they are focused to each region, and
the needs might differ depending on the regions too. Yeah. I guess.
Yeah, the topics might be exactly the same, but obviously the conversation and the people talking about that topic are going to discuss, what their local challenges are, and they won't. So yeah, there's the famous, glocal word. So
yeah, I see the key differentiator you have, and I was about to ask you because it's quite tough to have all these kind of touch points. I mean, you have these events as standalone products, but doing a whole, I would say, journey throughout the year so that you embark your whole audience depending on the continent, and you have the newsletters, the podcast, as you mentioned. But what's the main challenges for you, like for those large scale events like you have? And you've mentioned the networking, the high quality, the need for the speakers. What's the key challenges that you have from maybe not 2016, because 2016 is no longer relevant, and that was something like that was the first period, but with the most recent one is where are you struggling or having issues?
Well, obviously to make it commercially viable is always a challenge. No, a big challenge is also bringing the right people, to the event, setting up obviously a strong program for the event, which is many times like what people see from the outside, but then most people actually that come to World Football Summit come for the networking. So making sure that not only the speakers are right, but the attendees, are coming from different backgrounds, are representatives of the top, clubs, leagues, and federations. Then, obviously, here in Europe, we are rather consolidated. But when we go to a new continent region, it's like starting all over again. and there we have to work the local market, create a strong database, create the right alliances with the right people. And when you're new to a country or region, it's always difficult to know who are the right, collaborators or supporters. You know how football is. There are so many rivalries, no? So sometimes
Yeah,
we have the support of an institution which we think is key, and they can help you, but that puts you against another institution which should be
yeah,
also key, no? So it's a pity for us, because World Football Summit, we try and be completely neutral, and
mm,
we try and give a voice to all of the stakeholders of the industry. But many times, we find ourselves in the middle of fights between fights between institutions that have got absolutely nothing to do with us. No, but well, I think it's
yeah. I guess it must be tough to navigate this kind of, especially new territories where you don't necessarily see it or you don't necessarily aware of it, and it's just kind of a backlash or something where at the end of the day you just want to run your event, having everybody to discuss and come together, but
yeah.
you're just like in the middle of something which is like way above and way nothing else to do with you. So
Yeah, no, and many times they put you in the middle, no, but yeah, in many countries, there's
they use you as an excuse.
yeah,
They like to
yeah.
use you.
So yeah,
That's easier.
so that is tough, but also I think it's also because the industry itself is not mature enough. I don't think that
Mm.
happens in other industries that are more mature, and hopefully, you know, uh, in the next years or so, well, they'll learn to work together amongst each other, because I believe it would be in everybody's interest. No?
Yeah. Hopefully they can listen to you. I no no, but I agree with you. I think in terms of maturity, you're right. And actually, that was something I was about to allude to, because you've mentioned kind of a similar to Web Summit, and given the industry is quite, I would say, new to as an industry to being professionalized and to being as a pure business. Um, it's like we are partners on the Sports
Yeah.
Tech Awards, and one of the questions I wanted to have with you also, it's something maybe we've discussed but not in depth, is have you seen like a change in the relationship between football and new technologies? Uh, have you seen it evolved since now, and how do you see it in the future? Because it's a new industry. We're working on it. It might take more time, but I wanted to know like how do you see that football new tech, especially with your sports tech award?
Yeah. Well, I think you there know this better than anyone, no? And in fact, is what I was saying. I mean, we provide a platform, and I'm very much in the background, because I always, try and bring the experts on the floor, no, to discuss about new technologies, how that is influencing and allowing the industry to grow. But actually, technology, we've worked with so many sports tech and tech companies, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon. We worked with La Liga Techs. I mean, they actually are the core. Technology is the core of the football industry, and the
Mm,
sports industry, and many of our clients come from that background. No? So, and I think it's what has allowed or is allowing the industry to really grow and to become an industry in itself. No, obviously football has always. I always say football is the greatest generator of content in the world. It's amazing.
yeah.
No, football is talked about absolutely everywhere. No, in
Mm,
a physical newspaper and a physical magazine, but obviously in every single blog, or digital and the radio. It's and in social media. It's absolutely
yeah.
crazy. I'm always surprised when people say, "Ah, no, the new generation they don't like football, they don't like sports," and then I don't know. You see the numbers, or you see a
No, but they
company.
do. They do. They do. They everybody like is the number one asset in terms
Yeah,
of engagement and in every platform. It's just that they engage and they consume it differently. And like you
exactly.
mentioned, you need these platforms with the new tech to actually serve these new demands or these new ways of consuming it in a different way than the traditional one that we had back in the days when it was just a sofa, a couch
Exactly.
with your linear TV and sitting with your dad for 2 hours with nothing else around. So
But yeah, no, and I see, for example, my nephew, he's 13 years old. I just bought him a camp, and he's now here in Madrid, and he's training with Real Madrid. Both his parents don't like football, no? And he's absolutely crazy about it, no? And so are all of his friends. And now he lives in the States. He's a Cristiano Ronaldo fan, so he supports Portugal. No, he doesn't care for anything else, and it's amazing. But I also see it. So that's why I think it's a bit of a fallacy, no? When new generations, they don't like, well, TikTok, no? If anybody knows about new generations, no, or Gen Z, it's TikTok. And when they decided to do a huge campaign, what did they do? They sponsor, no, and they partner with UEFA for the Euro 2024, and it was an absolutely huge success for them, no. So
yeah, I agree. I agree. It's just I was it's I was just wondering if you've seen some kind of an evolution as well from not just the startup side, but also like from these main, I would say, companies in the tech sector. Uh, Maybe they have arrived a bit more recently, or if they were there since the beginning. But I think with, I guess La Liga Tech is fairly new, but it was just maybe a continuation of what La Liga was doing internally, and then they have this right arm being La Liga Tech and helping as well. So I guess you've answered it to a certain extent. But Microsoft or Meta and stuff, they have been there since the beginning, right?
yeah, well, yeah. They at our events they participated
Yes.
since the very beginning. Yeah,
Mhm.
and actually, when we started, we were surprised that each one has their own department, but it's because of what we were saying before, no? Because how much content is generated around football and sports within their platforms. No, it's absolutely huge. I
Yeah.
remember. Well, we have a deck now, and we were seeing also during the Qatar World Cup, which in theory wasn't going to be watched by anyone, no, and the amount. I remember Mark Zuckerberg. He posted that the amount of messages that were sent over WhatsApp during that final was the highest. I don't remember right now the number, but it was absolutely crazy. Elon Musk as well was tweeting about the amount of usage on Twitter during the World Cup. Google as well, the amount of searches. It's just it's just huge, no? And before technology and all of these technologies, I think it's a great opportunity for football to grow, no, and to reach those audiences and generate some kind of revenue from them. No, that's the great challenge I think that the football industry has. No,
As an asset class, it's the best to engage after the question of whether, at the end of the day, not necessarily the players, but the rights holders, the clubs, get a decent share or a fair share around it, thanks to the technology that have been used to actually create that kind of content and distribute it. That's another question. And I think there's still a long way to go to really capitalize on it for the industry. But I definitely agree with what you were saying. I mean,
yeah, no, and absolutely, and actually, and also, yeah, they generate so much hype, so much content, etc. But then you see the revenues, and that's why when I say that I work well that I help build World Football Summit, and they say, that it's a huge industry, it moves so much money, you must be, and I'm like, no, it's actually a rather small industry. And I always give the example, look at Real Madrid, no, it's maybe or City Football Group, no, they're the club that generates more revenue than any other club, no, in the world, no, it's the Apple no, of football, and it has an annual revenue of, I don't know, 900 million euros a year, no, and
Yeah,
that's the same as
below the
two
billion.
Apple stores in New York, no, what they generate basically, no, which is absolutely nothing. And I think in Spain there are 450 companies that generate more annual revenue than Real Madrid, no, and you haven't heard about 80% of those companies, no, but obviously as a brand,
Yeah,
it's Real Madrid.
but this is where it's crazy to. So I mean, it's the whole point of the industry where clearly you are an asset class and everybody wants it, and that's why I'm not concerned on the future of sports, like you were saying. I mean, even new generation are still interested, consuming it, engaging, playing it, maybe differently, and so you need to serve them differently, but they are still there. But it's true that when you look at the numbers and the equation, there is some kind of a very big difference between the revenues that they can have and the numbers that they are supposed to have in terms of followers and
Yeah.
people they truly know as well on their backend and in their database. Not even mentioning the Spotify Barcelona deal and stuff like that, but
Mhm.
that tells you all around. Yes, you have the viewers, you have the discussions, you are this kind of entry door to so many people all over the world. But how do you capitalize on it? How do you serve it? It's something also, like you were saying, it's the industry is still being professionalized, and I think there is still like work in progress in terms of finding the right business model for these new ways of consuming and engaging with sports, and making sure also the clubs, the leagues, the whole industry understands the stakes at the current time.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to World Football Summit, I was wondering, like, is there anything you've learned? I don't know, for in one specific event or at one edition or all the years that you want to share, or something like something noteworthy, like something very, I don't know if it's something spicy or anything, but if you had like a memory or something you've learned at some point, either during the preparation or delivering the event or by one of the speakers on site, or something like you want to share with us.
But well, for me, the journey itself of from the initial idea, which sounded a little bit crazy, and everything has been so incredible, and that journey really for me, what has given me the most, what I'm most proud of is basically, it's like the relationships, that this has allowed myself to build, but I'm also very proud of the relationships that World Football Summit has helped build. That's a bit innate from me. I mean, since I was a kid, I loved bringing people together.
Mhm.
And I'm a very sociable person, so I have a lot of friends. And now, thanks to World Football Summit, I have many more. No, well, the
You're
other
a
day,
connector platform yourself. That's
exactly,
why. Yeah.
yeah. But the other day, for example, we're right now speaking with FIFPro. Well, I was in Istanbul a few weeks ago, and
Mhm.
FIFPro was organizing an event in Istanbul the day before our event, which was on a Friday on the 9th of June before the Champions League final. And they invited us to their event. We at the end managed to bring them into our event, to organize an event, a small panel, which was at the end the inaugural panel of our Football Innovation Forum. And who participated there was Maeta Molango, who actually, well, was who participated in the first panel of World Football Summit's history. So in 2016, the inaugural panel of World Football Summit on the 26th of October was called Investments in the Football Industry. And it was a panel with Maeta, who at the time, was the CEO of Mallorca, or the recent CEO of Mallorca, because it had been bought by the Americans. There was the corporate general manager of La Liga, Javier Gomez, the person responsible for KPMG, who now is the president of KPMG for the whole of Spain. And yeah, that was the inaugural panel, and so when I saw him,
7 years after, from
yeah,
Madrid to then Istanbul, 7 years
yeah,
after doing this.
yeah.
And do you see often this kind of profile or these different speakers like moving on? Not like maybe you don't see them for 2 3 years and they pop out again somewhere else, or
Yeah,
is
no,
that quite often? Yeah.
yeah, no, at the end, you build very strong relationships. It's like, when I see Maeta, maybe I haven't seen him for 4 years, no, but when we see each other, it's a hug, no? And actually, it's funny with Maeta, there are several interesting stories. He was meant to speak at our African edition back in 2020. It was supposed to take place on the 16th and on the 17th and 18th of March 2020, and it got canceled 5 days before the event because of the pandemic. But,
Yeah.
he was going to come there. He's now, the president of PFA, but apparently he had participated at World Football Summit in a panel with Ebru Koksal, who was one of the decision makers of the PFA, to make them. So there was apparently a scandal because they had spoken together in a panel. So there was a conflict of interest there. So because of World Football Summit and me putting them in a panel together, maybe, there was
You
some,
created a mess. You
yeah,
created a mess.
yes, exactly. So, and like that, maybe there are hundreds of stories, no? And that's what, I think makes World Football Summit so special, and everything that we've created, and
Yeah.
and yeah, and that's why whenever, we see each other, no, those stories come up, no, and those great relationships have been built.
It works well. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Before we end up with with the traditional questions we like to ask, can you give us a bit what's next? What are you cooking up at the moment? What do you have lined up for the next summit? Or, I mean, I know I will be in Sevilla, but what else do you have? Or is there anything you wanna? What can you tell us? Maybe for this year, but the next editions or the next years. I know that now you are going to Saudi for the next 5 years potentially, but
Yeah.
what else do you have like cooked up at the moment?
Well, yeah. I mean, we have our 7th edition of World Football Summit. Obviously, there was a hiatus. It should have been the 8th, no? But with the pandemic, we had to cancel that event back in 2020. But well, and as I was telling you before, most of the things that happen in events happened the last month. So the big names and we're gonna announce them in a few weeks or in the months to come. No, but actually something that, and then 3 months later in December, we have our Asian edition, which took place in 2019 in Kuala Lumpur. We're bringing it to Saudi Arabia. We still haven't set up the date, but it's going to take place in December during the FIFA Club World Cup. So hopefully we will be announcing the dates as soon as possible, because we're speaking with the key stakeholders to ensure, that it makes sense to organize the event during those dates, that we don't step on anybody's toes, and that our event, is included within the program of events that will be taking place during those 10 days. We're hoping to renew also our African edition and doing it in March next year. And hopefully soon we'll also come to North America, no? And with the 2026 World Cup happening there, it makes a lot of sense for us to do it. So our big challenge is to have a regional regional event in a different continent in each quarter, no? And to ensure that they all become, that they all consolidate themselves as much as we've done here in Europe, and obviously a lot more. But something that I'm actually very excited and that we hope to launch in Sevilla on the 20th and 21st is a rebranding of World Football Summit. With rebrandings, there's always quite a lot of work to do, but we've worked for the past 2-3 months with a Spanish company called Suma Branding. They're very, very strong. in sports, they do the branding for Barcelona. They did a rebranding for Sevilla. They did the branding of, the famous Kings League. And then they worked with many other, with many other companies. And we set up an agreement with them, and we did like these workshops together with them to understand what World Football Summit is, how we want people to look at us, what are our long-term objectives.
Your
and
vision.
It's incredible. It's been, I don't know, some people might like the new brand, some won't like it at all, but just, the journey we did with them to learn more about ourselves, because at the end, we were, each day we have
your values, where you want to be,
Yeah.
your why, so your vision.
And we've never, or many times, we haven't dedicated enough time to that. But this company, forced us to do it. And we learned so much about ourselves and how we want people and what our vision and our mission is. And it's incredible how a company that knew so little about us or nothing knows so well about
everything.
Yeah, everything. No, so that is a project I'm particularly excited about, because also I've always been very proud of the image that we have, but this is going to be a big change. I think in the right direction, and yeah, I think it will put us. It elevates us as a
so
company.
you are entering into a new era. So you had like the first phase where it was starting from scratch, building it, making it, and now it will be a new era for even more globalized consolidation, and not only Europe. So that's it.
Yeah,
I don't want to be your director of operations, to be honest, thinking of it like jumping from one continent to another every quarter to organize that kind of things with different culture, different ways of doing things. But I can see the journey though. It's cool.
Yeah. No, and we're very excited about it. And yeah, I mean, we've done well, but we can do so much better. I mean, we
As
still,
always,
yeah, exactly. But that's good, no? So, yeah, we still.
It means you are not done yet. I like it because it means like you still have like good ambitions, and you see like the glass half not full or half empty and not half full. So it means that you are still like you still see some
Oh, but we're still a startup. I mean, we didn't exist 7 years ago. No, our first event was less than 7 years ago. No, and with a pandemic in the middle. No, so during 2 years we weren't able to bring people together physically. No, we did do it digitally, which was actually, we were very lucky that the pandemic took place during 2020, because maybe in 2017, 2016, the technology wouldn't have existed to enable us to do what we did. For example, we did 2 online events, and on paper, actually, they were the best events we ever did in terms of number of attendees, quality of the speakers. Obviously, the revenue had nothing to do with on-site revenue, but at least the brand. Yeah,
and the expenses too. If you look at the bottom line, it's
well, but we suffered quite a lot, huh, JB? I mean, we were 20 in March 2020, and 1 year later we were 6 people in the team now. So it hit us hard for sure. And but we survived. We did well. The brand, I think, even grew. No, and now finally we are back where we were, and with even more ambitions.
Listen, congrats. Honestly, like I said at the beginning, like I think now you're more. I mean, I know you professionally, but you are a good connector or networking. So, and say it's more you're more of a friend than a colleague in the business. So, congrats on what you have set up, and thank you for taking the time. Honestly, Jan, that was super interesting. Um, and I hope the rebranding will go well. That we'll have something new in September, and I will see you. I will see you there anyway. Like if I don't see you before that.
Fantastic. Okay, JB. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the time, Jan. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. We hope you enjoy it as much as we love creating them. If you like the episode, feel free to comment, rate, and share with people around you. You can visit our website, www.lastsource.io, to learn more about our activities. You will discover a wide range of articles and can subscribe to our newsletter to receive the latest tech and sports news in your mailbox every month. Stay tuned for new episodes.
Le corner.